Hello. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Chantelle and I'm a member in Dunleary Evangelical Church. And last week I got a phone call from Ross asking would I do a Dougie's Daily. And I have to admit I went back and forward changing my mind lots of times before I came to the conclusion that I would do it. Some of you may or may not know that I am much more comfortable making a fool of myself in front of children, where I have lots of different resources and I'm jumping up and down on things and whatnot. So this is very different for me to be speaking to grown-ups as well as children perhaps, and to be presented in a much more calm manner. I was praying about what I should speak to you about today, and God really brought me back to a journey that I've been on over the last couple of months, and it's all to do with our identity in God and our identity as a Christian, who we are. And I don't know if being in lockdown or being stuck at home has been something of benefit for you. Maybe you're getting to spend more time with yourself than you normally have, and maybe you're discovering things about yourself that you never knew before, and you're loving it. Or perhaps you're reflecting on things and you're maybe finding out things about yourself that you're not loving so much, or maybe you feel like you're losing your identity a little bit. Maybe you're a mom full-time, and well, you're always a mom full-time, but maybe you're not getting the break that you normally have, and you feel like your identity as a friend or as an independent person, maybe you've lost your job and you don't know where you stand as a person in terms of the work world now, or something like that. Maybe things are just up in the air and you're just questioning who you are. And I know our world talks an awful lot about self-love and self-help and building up self-esteem and things like that. And I suppose I really learned, I've known it a long time, but I really came back to learning that it's not about self-love and how much we can feed into ourselves, but it's about learning to love ourselves because of who we truly are and because of who God calls us to be. We are made in His image, and that's just the most beautiful thing that there is anyway. And how could we not love ourselves if that's who we're made to be? We're also called to love our neighbours as we love ourselves, and in a time where everybody is really stretching out a helping hand to help, neighbours virtually or neighbours who are physically beside us or things like that, would you stretch the same hand out to yourself? And I suppose I just wanted to remind us today of some of the things that God calls us and some of the things that the Bible says we are, and just really to remind us about that, so that if you are feeling a little bit lost, or if you just need reminding of who you are, or even if you're doing really well, it's always really good to affirm those things and to let God remind you and just say to you, yes, that is who you are. And so a lot of these things, when over the last couple of months that I've been looking at, have actually come to me through song lyrics. But each of those song lyrics are either based off of a verse from the Bible, or else they have reminded me of a specific verse from the Bible. And so the first song lyrics that came to mind when I was thinking about this back in January was from a song called Who You Say I Am. And it says, I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. And I suppose it reminded me of the verse in Esther chapter 4, verse 14. And that says, for if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. And God has chosen us to be his people. But he knew that this was going to come, and whether it's, being a teacher working from home and teaching remotely, whether it's being a dad, staying at home, whether you've lost your job, whether you're trying to juggle having a job as well as, teach children at home, whether it's looking after a parent, or whether you're a frontline worker, or no matter who you are, maybe it's just even the communication you're having over Zoom or over WhatsApp with people. Maybe there's communication you've picked up, but we were created and we were called for such a time as this. We are God's chosen people, and he knew that we were going to encounter this. And so whatever your role is in this, know that you are part of this for such a time as this, and you are placed wherever you are placed for such a time as this, and God will and God is working through you. And when we feel quite limited, or at least some of us might feel quite limited, isn't it nice to know that is something that is just so within God's hand. The next thing that came, or the next song lyrics that came to me was actually carried on in that song, and it says, "You are for me, not against me." And I find it huge comfort to know that in this situation, but actually every day, regardless, God is for me, regardless of what I think or feel about myself. He is for me. He is not against me. He's on my side, and knowing I have him on my side just brings such comfort to me. And I suppose that it brought two verses to mind. The first being Exodus chapter 4:14. For any of you looking at my Bible, I'm not actually looking at Exodus at the minute, I'm going the wrong way. But that says, the Lord will fight for you, you only need to be still. And so if you're panicked, or if it's just madness at the minute, know that God's on your side. He's for you, not against you, and he will fight for you. It also just reminded me of Romans chapter 8, where it talks about being more than conquerors. And it says, "If God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all." Like, he's on our side, regardless of where your situation is or where you're at. God is for you. He is not against you, not today, not ever. And it's a real comfort to know that. The next the next song lyrics that came to me were a song that I first ever heard at Teen Street. It always reminds me of my cousin Kira, because I think she had it as her baptism song, so it always reminds me of her as well. But "No Longer Slaves," and in that song it just says, "I'm a child of God. Yes, I am." And in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 18, it in black and white, it says, and this is the Lord saying this, "I will be a father to you, and you will be my sons and daughters, says the Lord Almighty." And we're royalty. That just makes us, we are sons and daughters of the Most High. I don't have children, but I know how much I care for the children that I teach in school, and how much I miss them, and how much I care for them, how much I want their updates, how much I love hearing their news, how much joy they bring me when I see their photos or their videos coming in, and how proud I am of them when they achieve things and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm like, if I can feel that about children that don't belong to me, never mind, as humans who, for those of you who do have children, we are God's children, and he loves us so, so, so much. And to know that we are part of his family, that he chose us, that he's for us, and we're part of his family is amazing, absolutely amazing. Another verse, this actually doesn't come from song lyrics, but in Proverbs 31, I was reading Proverbs a couple of weeks ago, and there's a line that just sticks out: "She is worth far more than rubies." And I began to think about what that meant, and about how precious people's engagement rings are, or jewelry is for them, and stuff like that. or if they have precious stones or anything at home, and how valuable those things are, and about how we're worth far more than those things. And it started to blow my mind when I just started to think about it. I just have two more, and there's another song in which it says, sorry, I'll just grab it over here. It says, "You're making me like you, you're clothing me in white, bringing beauty from ashes." And knowing that God can make ugly things beautiful, and I'm not calling us ugly, but knowing that he can bring beauty into the most tricky situations, that he can change such difficult circumstances around, and he can bring out the best in any of us. Yeah, I get blown away by how he always sees us as beautiful, and how he always sees the good points, and how he loves us so much. And I suppose I was brought to the verse in 1 Samuel that says, "But the Lord said to Samuel, 'Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things that people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart.'" And some people are great at getting up every day and getting dressed, and really making the most of being at home and having time to spend maybe doing that. And if you're like me, you'll be in tracksuits most of the day. My hair is tied up. I'm not wearing makeup. I'm not putting much effort into my appearance. It happens once a week when I am recording videos for my children in school to send home as part of their schoolwork. And today happens to be that day. But it's nice to know that God sees me as beautiful, regardless of what I actually look like. But he looks at my heart, and he knows that it is for him, and that yours can be or is too. And the last part is that there's a line in the song that says, well, actually continuing on in that song again, "Free of all her guilt and rid of all her shame, and known by her true name." And our true names are what God calls us. All of these things. We are free. We are full of hope. We are children of God. We are not burdened. We have no fear. We are chosen. These are our true names. These are what God calls us. And free of all our guilt and rid of all our shame, regardless of what you are carrying shame or guilt about, whether it's something you did once upon a time, whether it's how you feel about what you've done today, whether it's maybe you've eaten more junk food than you normally would, maybe you've not exercised, or maybe you're exercising more and you're feeling guilty for neglecting your work, or I don't know what the situation is or what you might be feeling guilty about, but know that you are free of all of that. And those are the things that God tells us about who we are. That's our true identity, and that's what we need to affirm and what we need to speak out as the truth in our lives.